One Trump supporter said, "I was obviously very wrong about Trump and Ukraine." Yeah, obviously. I feel incredibly stupid for getting this wrong. All right, I want to dig into a topic that's actually been pissing me off personally lately because the Trump administration's handling of the war between Russia and Ukraine is worse than anything I could have ever imagined. The incompetence dripping off of Donald Trump and JD Vance and Pete Hegseth is honestly terrifying, and even some Trump supporters are waking up. This dude said a few months back, Trump is not going to take this loss on Ukraine, and now this Trump supporter has moved all the way to, "I was obviously very wrong about Trump and Ukraine." You know, I'll read his whole journey in 1 second, but I want to show you guys that our president is caught up in a bubble of disinformation, and even Zelensky is saying as much. Donald Trump lately has been taking one-on-one calls with Vladimir Putin, locking Zelensky out of the calls, blocking him from being on the calls, and negotiating with Putin one-on-one. Then Trump comes away from the calls, gushing about Putin, using Putin's narrative about the war, and basically justifying the invasion of Ukraine until the other day he said, Ukraine should never have started the war. He is saying that Ukraine started the war when they were the one that got invaded, and that's because he's wrapped in this misinformation sphere, as Zelensky puts it, or he says misinformation space. Let's watch this clip. All that I ask is that you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of people say that they thought they were subscribed to the channel, but it turns out they weren't this whole time. So make sure you're subscribed below, and let's start off with this clip.
Unfortunately, President Trump, with all due respect, he is the leader of American people whom we respect a lot. Unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
That is Zelensky saying that he respects Trump because he's the leader of the American people who he respects, but he lives in this disinformation space. And that's honestly an understatement. We have a president who's almost a QAnon president. He easily spreads lies about widespread election fraud when there's zero proof. He spreads lies about Democrats. He spreads lies about FEMA and about natural disasters that occur. He spreads lies about COVID. And now he has no problem spreading lies about the Russia-Ukraine war, but in favor of Russia. And it's honestly worse than anything we could have imagined. I want to show you this clip of me explaining to a MAGA veteran about a year back. This Trump-supporting veteran who was deployed in Afghanistan asks me, why is it even important that we fund Ukraine? And this will lay the groundwork for the argument that I'm going to make after that will debunk what Trump's been saying. Take a look. The U.S. is the strongest country in the world right now, militarily right now. You don't think so?
No. We're on our knees right now. Why do we even have an interest to be over there?
Well, for a few reasons. First of all, Zelensky is becoming more and more Western aligned. And when you have Vladimir Putin, who we can agree is a murderous dictator, right? When he invades his next door neighbor, who's a sovereign country, and tries to grab that land, not only does that violate international law, but it's just not a precedent that we want to set. If we set that precedent, what if Xi Jinping wants to invade Taiwan and then...
Oh, I know. I mean, all of these scenarios are up in the air. So, but let me ask you this: Do you know about when the fall of the Soviet Union happened?
Yeah,
when we agreed not to expand NATO east towards the Russian border?
What you're talking about is James Baker and Gorbachev making an agreement that they wouldn't expand 1 inch eastward, but this wasn't a formal agreement. This was just a passing conversation about military expansion. And if you want to talk about breaking deals, Vladimir Putin broke the Budapest Memorandum, which said that if Ukraine gives up their nukes, then Russia will never invade. There were multiple times when I was able to explain it to Trump supporters, to break it down, and it actually sort of got through to them. I don't know about this guy, but I changed multiple Trump supporters' minds on Ukraine in particular because it's such an intuitive topic when you don't have Russian propaganda clouding what you say at all times. So, before we break down this Trump supporter who changed his mind, I just want to show that Trump the other day said Ukraine should have never started it. And that pissed me off so much that I wrote a whole Substack post about it. I'm not going to read the full post, but I want to read a few key lines that make the argument against what Trump is saying. My Substack is in the description below. You should definitely go check it out. Go become a subscriber. But this says, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. The current administration's handling of the Russia-Ukraine war is far worse than anything I could have imagined. My expectations were already low. I figured Trump would pretend to be tough before staging a fake victory like he did with Trudeau and Sheinbaum when he actually takes no victory at all. But here's what actually happened. He spent a year claiming he'll end the war on day one. Then 3 weeks after that promised date, he realized it's not that simple and he phoned up Putin. After one conversation, he seems to buy Putin's justification for the war entirely and repeats it verbatim. Then the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, accidentally makes significant concessions on Ukraine's behalf while on stage in Brussels, ceding much of their leverage. And this was just wild. I mean, even senior Republicans openly called it a rookie move. A senior Republican senator said it's a rookie move to go out on stage and to just make concessions mid-negotiation. Hegseth backtracks the next day after Republicans scold him. J.D. Vance then also makes reckless comments in Munich about free speech, forcing Europe into an emergency meeting. Trump publicly says Biden and Ukraine are at fault for the war. Trump offers Ukraine the most offensive deal possible. The U.S. gets half of its mineral resources, and Ukraine gets zero security guarantees, and Zelensky rejects the deal. By the way, Zelensky was right to. So that lays the groundwork. That is why this Republican dude is like, Trump's handling has been abysmal, but it's even worse. This weekend, Zelensky warned that if U.S. pulls out of NATO, Russia will invade Europe. Other European countries. He will begin to encroach on other territory. And as I say here, at the very least, the sitting US president should be expected to push back on a Russian authoritarian's Hitler-esque invasion of a neighbor. And the worst part is Trump sent out this long Truth Social post absolutely gushing about his phone call with Putin, saying, he used my strong campaign motto, common sense. We both believe very strongly in common sense, not even realizing that, homie, Putin can do the smallest bit of research and find out you use that slogan throughout your entire campaign. Putin manufactured this moment. Putin tried to manufacture this nice, fun bro moment where they're like, oh, you love common sense too? But it was all just manufactured on Putin's behalf. And then finally, to make matters worse, our new director of national intelligence, the person in charge of giving Trump daily intelligence briefings, tweeted this on the night Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, quote, this war and suffering could have been easily avoided if Biden and NATO had simply acknowledged Russia's legitimate security concerns regarding Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, which would mean U.S. NATO forces right on Russia's border. But again, Tulsi Gabbard is believing Putin's narrative. It's actually mind-boggling. Like, I'm sorry, but it's actually mind-boggling that the director of national intelligence and Donald Trump are both borderline QAnon conspiracy theorists who are opting to believe Putin's narrative. And I even debunk it in this Substack post. Remember, go check out the Substack. After Trump's call with Putin, Trump parroted Kremlin talking points about the war, and then he blamed Biden. This argument is nonsense for multiple reasons. Number one, NATO is a purely defensive alliance. It has never invaded or annexed territory at all. That's not what NATO does. Number two, NATO has already been on Russia's border for 20 plus years. The Baltic states are in NATO, and Russia has never been attacked via the Baltic states. So when Tulsi Gabbard and when Trump say that Putin doesn't want NATO on his border, that's BS. NATO has been on his border for 21 years, and you can't point to a single security threat that the Baltic countries have raised because NATO is a defensive alliance. See point number one right here. So NATO's a defensive alliance. NATO has been on Russia's border. And number three, Ukraine is a sovereign nation. If Ukraine wants to join NATO and NATO is okay with that, and the citizens of Ukraine all agree, then that can happen without Russia having any say. Russia doesn't get a veto. Russia doesn't get any say in what countries surrounding Russia do. That's just not how geopolitics works. So by repeating Putin's justification for the war, Trump is legitimizing Russia's strategy, which is invade a sovereign territory, claim it's for security, and basically wait for the West to give up. I hope that write-up gave you a solid, concise understanding of why and how Trump has dropped the ball. But let's get on to this Trump supporter, Gummy Bear, who said, on November 26th, as you can see right here, November 26th of 2024, as I've said before, Trump is not going to take a loss on Ukraine, this person confidently states. He is going to leverage American power to bring Putin to negotiations, and Trump will follow through on his threat if Putin shows him up. So please stop the Trump will abandon Ukraine narrative and the OMG World War III nonsense. This is what they said in November, and they were responding to Sebastian Gorka. You guys know Gorka. He was claiming that Trump has a private plan to end the Ukraine war by threatening the thug Putin. So it's interesting because people around Trump are actually quite pro-Ukraine at times. There's some people around Trump who are pro-Ukraine, And to be 100% fair to this Trump supporter that we're looking at right here, I didn't think Trump would be good on Ukraine, but I thought he would kind of do what he did to Trudeau at the very least. What Trump did to Trudeau was essentially act like an arrogant asshole while getting zero actual substantial victory, right? So I thought Trump was gonna like be belligerent to Zelensky, maybe be an asshole to Putin, make no real change, get no real concessions from each side, then do a press conference claiming he took a victory. You know that's Trump's strategy every time, right? But like I said, it's even far worse than that for the reasons I mentioned earlier. He's just parroting Russian propaganda. But then this Trump supporter says, I was obviously very wrong about Trump and Ukraine. And this was yesterday. This was after Trump said that Zelensky should have never started the war, which is just complete BS. This person says, I was obviously very wrong about Trump and Ukraine. I feel incredibly stupid for getting this wrong. There's no excuse for the things he said at this press conference. He was callous and superficial. Honestly, I can't spin this into anything positive, this person says. And you can't. How do you spin the US president repeating Russian talking points verbatim into anything positive? It's honestly alarming, and it's something that's been kind of pissing me off personally lately. So I'll leave it at that. Drop a like, subscribe if you enjoy this video. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.